Have you ever wondered why this small strip of land in the Middle East, barely the size of New Jersey, has been the focal point of world history, prophecy, and conflict for thousands of years? Why Israel? Why does this ancient nation, mentioned in texts over 2,500 years old, still shape the headlines today? What if I told you that the answers to the most pressing geopolitical mysteries might already be written in a book that's been on your shelf for years? Let's begin. Thousands of years ago, in a time shrouded by myth and dust, a man named Abraham received a promise. Not from a king, not from an empire, but from God himself. The promise? That his descendants would become a great nation, possess a specific land, and bless the entire world. Abraham's story was not extraordinary at first glance. He was just a wanderer from Ur. But he would become the father of nations, the patriarch of the Israelites, and the seed of a divine covenant that echoes through history like a thunderclap. Fast forward to Isaac, to Jacob, renamed Israel, and to the 12 sons who birthed the 12 tribes. They weren't perfect. They lied, they fought, they sinned, but they carried something sacred: destiny. That destiny would be tested in Egypt. A family became a people, but under the weight of slavery. For 400 years they toiled until, in a blaze of miracles and plagues, they walked free. Led by a stuttering prophet named Moses, they wandered. 40 years in the wilderness, shaped not just into a nation, but into a covenantal people. When they finally entered the land, it wasn't just a political conquest, it was a fulfillment. Every grain of soil beneath their feet had been promised centuries earlier. But the promise came with conditions. The history of Israel is one of divine romance and rebellion. Kings rose and fell. Prophets warned and wept. The people chased idols, ignored justice, and neglected mercy, and yet, always, God pursued them. But what makes Israel different? Why does this ancient story refuse to fade? Because the Bible paints Israel not just as a nation, but as a timepiece. You see, Israel's existence is tied to prophecy. Jeremiah predicted a return from exile. Ezekiel saw dry bones come to life. Isaiah foresaw a servant who would suffer, and a kingdom without end. These weren't vague allegories. They were detailed forecasts. And the most shocking part? They came true. Over centuries. Against all odds. The exile to Babylon? Fulfilled. The scattering among the nations? Fulfilled. The return to the land? Fulfilled in 1948. Think about that. A nation destroyed, its people dispersed for nearly 2,000 years, returns to its land and revives its language. That's not just rare. It's unprecedented. And it's biblical. The prophet Amos wrote, "I will plant them in their land, and they shall no more be uprooted." Is that what we're seeing today? But here's where it gets even more intriguing. According to biblical prophecy, Israel's reemergence isn't the end. It's the beginning. Jesus, speaking on the Mount of Olives, tied the future of the world to a fig tree, a symbol of Israel. He said, "When its branch becomes tender and puts out its leaves, you know that summer is near." Was he hinting at a rebirth? In modern times, Israel has become a technological superpower, a diplomatic lightning rod, and a military powerhouse. But those are shadows. The deeper significance lies in the spiritual narrative. What if Israel is the stage, and the final act is about to begin? The Bible speaks of a coming time of tribulation, of global unrest centered on Jerusalem. Zechariah wrote that all nations will gather against her. Could the headlines be fulfilling prophecy in real time? And then, a promise. Deliverance. A return of the Messiah. A kingdom restored. Israel at the heart of it all. But this raises a provocative question. Why would God tether his plan to such a flawed people? Why not choose Rome, or Babylon, or America? Because in Israel's story, we see ourselves, a people called, a promise made, a struggle endured. The Bible doesn't flatter Israel, it exposes her. And yet, God remains faithful. This isn't just history, it's destiny. The Apostle Paul wrote that the gifts and calling of God are irrevocable. He described Israel as temporarily blinded, but not rejected. He foresaw a time when all Israel will be saved. What does that mean? And when will it happen? Some say it's symbolic. Others believe it's literal. But one thing is clear. The Bible's spotlight never leaves Israel. Let's dive deeper. The Old Testament lays the foundation. Genesis to Malachi, creation, covenant, kings, captivity. Israel is central. The New Testament expands it. Jesus, born in Bethlehem, taught in Galilee, died in Jerusalem. Every apostle was Jewish, the early church, rooted in Israel. And yet, as Christianity spread, something strange happened. The church distanced itself from its roots. Israel was forgotten, even vilified. Replacement theology took hold, the idea that the church had replaced Israel. But the Bible never said that. In fact, Romans 11 warns against arrogance. Paul uses the image of an olive tree. Israel is the root, and Gentile believers are grafted in. We don't replace Israel. We join her story. So what's next? According to Revelation, there will be a climactic struggle, a charismatic world leader, a global system, persecution, but also hope, victory, restoration, and at the center of it all, Israel. The city of Jerusalem is mentioned over 800 times in Scripture, but not once in the Quran. Isn't it fascinating that this one city is the epicenter of global tension? Coincidence or design? Consider this. Jesus will return to the Mount of Olives. That's in Israel. He will reign from Jerusalem. That's in Israel. The nations will gather there for judgment. Again, Israel. This tiny land carries the weight of eternity. But what does it mean for you? If Israel's destiny is written, and we are living in prophetic times, then your story is part of this bigger picture. The God who made promises to Abraham also makes promises to you, and he keeps them. Perhaps you've felt the stirring, that there's more to life than headlines and hashtags, that history is building toward something, that behind the chaos, there's a plan. Israel is the key, not because of politics, but because of prophecy. So next time you see that flag, or hear the name Jerusalem, or read a headline from the Middle East, pause. Consider. Could it be that you're witnessing prophecy unfold? Maybe the Bible isn't an old book after all. Maybe it's a roadmap. And maybe, just maybe, Israel isn't just a nation, it's destiny.